70 kilometers of drainage channels and removed almost 300 metric tons of debris to prevent waterlogging and traffic disruptions. Mayor Chen says he's instructed the Water Resources Bureau to stay on their toes as we enter typhoon season, and said he expects real-time monitoring and quick actions should flood conditions arise, meaning that hopefully this year won't bring viral videos of underwater cars or flooded basements. Reporting for ICRT from Kaohsiung, I'm Michael Smith.
A coalition of migrant worker rights groups called on the Ministry of Labor to urge the government to extend labor insurance coverage to about 200,000 migrant domestic workers in Taiwan. The group held a rally to coincide with International Domestic Workers' Day. Advocates say domestic workers often work long hours and physically assist the elderly in their care, and denying live-in caregivers labor insurance protection is both unfair and inhumane. The group say live-in caregivers are currently only covered by labor occupational accident insurance, which partially reimburses medical expenses incurred by work-related injuries. However, since domestic workers are not covered by the Labor Standards Act, they're not entitled to sick leave, which means they receive no income or benefits while recovering from major illnesses. And the Ministry of Labor says any change to current laws means employers of domestic migrant workers will provide labor insurance, and the government must consider the opinions of both employers and workers. And Pope Leo XIV has blessed a newlywed Taiwanese couple in person during a public appearance in Rome, where he applauded missionary work in Taiwan and pledged to pray for peace in the country. Taiwan's embassy to the Holy See said via social media that the couple met the Pope during a weekly public audience. The Pope says the Pope praised the missionary work of Taiwan's Chinese Regional Bishops' Conference in the local Catholic Church and promised to pray for no wars for the nation. The newly wedded husband, Wu Chunjian, is encouraging Taiwanese Catholics to consider visiting Rome for their honeymoon. He said he can meet the Pope, and he holds public meetings every Wednesday with tickets available on the Vatican government website. His wife works at the Commission of Evangelization of Chinese Regional Bishops' Conference and has previously visited Rome to attend the International Leaders Summit. Looking to weather now, we can expect partly cloudy skies and occasional afternoon thunder showers in the north and south with a high of 35 in Taipei and a high of 32 in Kaohsiung. Mostly cloudy skies, occasional afternoon thunder showers in the center, high of 33 in Taichung. And partly cloudy skies in the east, to see 26 in Taichung, 29 in Kaohsiung, 27 in Hualien. International news, and Israel claims it's now operating to almost freely in the skies over Iran. That's during a third day of airstrikes, and killed more high-ranking security figures, while some Iranian missiles slipped through Israeli air defenses. The Iranian Health Ministry said that 224 people have been killed since Israel's attack began on Friday. The spokesman said on social media that more than 1,000 other people were hospitalized. He asserted more than 90% of the casualties were civilians. The Associated Press's Joe Fetterman has the latest.
Israel says it has inflicted some significant damage on Iran. They've already killed a number of top commanders and hit other military targets. Also, of course, they have been targeting these nuclear facilities across Iran. Equally significant, the Israeli Air Force now says it has taken out most of Iran's air defenses. It has virtual free movement over Iran's skies. That will make it easier for the Air Force to press ahead with these airstrikes. However, they have not been able to halt the missile barrages. Iran has been launching dozens of missile strikes. Israel, of course, does have that sophisticated air defense system, but officials here say it is not 100% effective, and we saw the results of that in these deadly strikes.
That was Joe Fetterman. Now both sides are threatening to launch more attacks, and an indication of how far Israel is prepared to go amid fears of an all-out war. A U.S. official told the Associated Press that U.S. President Donald Trump in recent days has vetoed an Israeli plan to kill Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Jennifer King reports on that.
President Trump vetoed a plan to kill Iran's supreme leader. Israel informed the Trump administration that it had developed a credible plan to kill Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, according to a U.S. official familiar with the matter. But after the briefing, the official says the White House made it clear that Trump was opposed to the move. In an interview on ABC's This Week, Israel's ambassador to the U.S., Michael Leiter, was asked if Iran's supreme leader was off the target list.
Nobody who's threatening the destruction of Israel should be off the target list. But we're not going to discuss specific individuals, online.
Posting to social media, President Trump predicted that Israel and Iran would soon make a deal to end their escalating conflict and said the United States had nothing to do with the attacks. Trump travels Sunday night to Calgary in Canada for a Group of 7 summit, where the Mideast crisis is expected to loom large over talks between the leaders. I'm Jennifer King.
Now, as Jennifer King mentioned, leaders of some of the world's biggest economic powers are arriving in the Canadian Rockies for a G7 summit that's been shadowed by the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran and Donald Trump's unresolved trade war. While there, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he's discussed efforts to de-escalate the crisis with Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as other world leaders, and said he expected intense discussions would continue at the summit. Israel's strikes on Iran and Iran's retaliation appeared to catch many world leaders unawares. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's decided to abandon the annual practice of issuing a joint statement. Trump is scheduled to arrive later today in Alberta. He will have a bilateral meeting with Carney later on Monday morning before the summit program begins. French President Emmanuel Macron is warning that Greenland is not to be sold nor to be taken. In a key visit to the strategic Arctic territory, the French leader made a stop on his way to the G7 summit. Julie Walker reports.
French President Emmanuel Macron in Greenland on his way to the G7 in Canada. The European leader reiterating his criticism of President Trump's intention to take control of the strategic Arctic island by force if necessary, speaking mainly in French, saying, I don't think that's something allies do, and in English, restating support.
Convey a message of friendship and solidarity from France and the European Union to help this territory to face the different challenges.
Macron met with Greenland's leader as well as the Danish Prime Minister, since Greenland is an autonomous territory within Denmark. Macron later attends the G7 with Trump. I'm Julie Walker.
Looking briefly at Asia, a spokesperson for the People's Liberation Army Southern Theater Command says China's military held joint sea and air patrols in the South China Sea at the weekend. Spokesperson Tian Zhongli said in a statement on Sunday that the Philippines has, quote, courted countries outside the region to organize joint patrols and raise security risks in the region. As a result, the PLA Theater Command forces remain on high alert, resolutely safeguarding China's national sovereignty and maritime interests. Tian also claimed all military activities that seek to stir up trouble in the South China Sea or to create flashpoints are fully under control. Now, this all comes after the Philippines and the United States conducted joint maritime drills in the South China Sea for a 7th time earlier this month. The Reuters news agency said the Philippine embassy in Beijing did not immediately respond to an emailed request for comment. To the United States, where residents and elected leaders are on edge as they try to make sense of the brazen political violence that's unfolded in the northern U.S. state of Minnesota. A massive search has stretched into its second day for a man who authorities say posed as a police officer before gutting down 2 state lawmakers. Walker returns to the call.
Vance Bolter, the suspect in the shooting deaths of Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, texted friends to say he'd made some choices. I'm going to be gone for a while, maybe dead shortly. Wish it hadn't gone this way. Sorry for the trouble. Bolter is also wanted for wounding lawmaker John Hoffman and his wife. Senator Amy Klobuchar on NBC's Meet the Press.
Everyone's on edge here because we know that this man will kill at a second. We also know that he is clearly off balance, from the manifesto.
Officials say they found one of Bolter's cars and belongings Sunday. On Saturday, outside Horton's house, he got into a shootout with police and fled, leaving another car behind, where a list of Democratic lawmakers and abortion providers was found, as well as No Kings flyers. I'm Julie Walker.
Hundreds of thousands of protesters took to streets across the U.S. on the weekend for a series of No Kings protests, condemning what they described as the Trump administration's authoritarian excesses. Protests taking part as a military parade marked both the Army's birthday and Donald Trump's 79th. Jennifer King returns with that.
As a military parade in Washington, D.C. celebrated the Army's 25th and President Trump's 79th birthday on Saturday, many people also turned out for No Kings demonstrations to protest the Trump administration. Large crowds marched in cities around the U.S., including Atlanta, Chicago, Denver, Houston, New York, and Philadelphia, where William Barber with Unite Before took the stage.
This kind of gathering can unite us in a moral movement to save America.
Clayton Gonzalez was among those voicing support for immigrants as the administration steps up enforcement raids.
We're advocating for those who need their voices heard.
In Salt Lake City, police were investigating a shooting during a march downtown. In Culpeper, Virginia, police say a 21-year-old driver was charged with reckless driving when he intentionally accelerated into a crowd. In Portland, Oregon, and Los Angeles, used tear gas and crowd control munitions to disperse the gathering after the formal event had ended. I'm Jennifer King.
Also in southern Europe, thousands of people came to the streets to demonstrate against over-tourism. Demonstrators fired water pistols at shop windows, setting off smoke in Barcelona, where the main protest took place. Protesters joined forces with groups in Portugal and Italy, arguing that uncontrolled tourism is sending housing prices soaring and forcing people out of their neighborhoods. Barcelona, which has a population of 1.6 million, drew a staggering 26 million tourists last year. Let's look at what's happening around the world. Stay tuned for business and sports coming up after the break.
Learn about another voice and culture of Taiwan with We Love Hakka.
现在让我们来收听精彩的客家音乐创作。
Hey, what's up? It's time for another Hakka song on ICRT. I am Joseph Lin, and here comes music by Misa, who's been nominated for a Golden Melody this year. This is a collaboration between her and the Japanese musician Toru Hayakawa. The album is called Dear Penguin. Now, the project reflects their differences in cultural backgrounds, but also a strong connection and shared sense of style. They've reimagined a lot of familiar songs into a simple, heartfelt way. Like this next one you're about to hear, it's called Moon is Beautiful.专辑《亲爱的企鹅》是米莎和日本音乐人早川彻共同合作推出的，以 Deer、Lou and Penguin 企鹅象征两人背景虽然不同，但凭着音乐美学与专业的默契，他们在熟悉的领域中重塑及改编每首歌曲的意义。这是一场跨越语言的对话，交织出纯粹而深刻的力量。而恭喜米莎这次入围了金曲客语歌手奖。Again, the song is called Moon is Beautiful by Misa, and we'd like to congratulate her on this Golden Melody nomination. My name is Joseph Lin. We will see you next time.
客家风情由客家委员会支持。
We Love Hakka has been brought to you by the Hakka Affairs Council.
最近，美国、加拿大移民留学教育及世界主要国家护照投资移民申请演讲座谈会由路比公司主办，欢迎免费报名参加。
将于6月21日本周六至6月22日本周日，在全台6大城市台北、新竹、台中、台南、高雄、花莲盛大举行。
6月21日本周六上午10点，高雄福华饭店。 下午2点半，台南远东饭店；晚上7点，台中福华饭店。
6月22日本周日上午9点半，新竹国宾饭店；下午2点，台北 W Hotel。
6月24日下周二晚上6点，花莲 F Hotel。
演讲会报名及24小时权威移民律师及专业顾问，提供您免费咨询服务。请电02-2707。 2111
02-2707-2111，移民信赖的品牌，路比国际移民顾问公司。
Stocks, shares, mergers, acquisitions. It's ICRT's Business Watch.
Welcome back. I'm beginning with news this morning from here in Taiwan. CPC has opted to leave gasoline prices unchanged at the pump for this week, but has hiked diesel prices. The move means that 92 octane unleaded remains at 26.6 NT per litre. However, the price of diesel has risen by 0.3 NT, meaning premium diesel now costs 25.4 NT per litre. According to the state refiner, international crude oil prices posted their highest weekly gains since October the 2022 last week, following Israel's launching of attacks on Iran, and that resulted in nuclear talks between the US and Iran stalling, which has also negatively affected crude oil prices. CPC adjusts its fuel prices weekly using a formula comprised of 70% Dubai crude and 30% Brent crude. And based on that formula, both gasoline and diesel prices should have increased by 0.8 NT per litre this week. However, CPC has once again chosen to absorb the losses in order to adhere to the government's policy of keeping domestic fuel prices lower than in major neighbouring markets. Formosa Petrochemical has made similar adjustments to its price at the pump from this morning. And the Taiwan Research Institute says the island's GDP is forecast to grow by 2.9% this year.